This is my acrylic palette, and it is my absolute favorite tool that I have that I use when I'm painting acrylics. And it's a lot like a Tupperware container. It's not the most beautiful thing, but it is absolutely worth every penny. It is a Sta-Wet palette. It's made by Masterson. You can find it in quite a few art stores, and it's not terribly expensive. The lid is part of what really helps your acrylics stay wet as you're working with them. And inside is some special palette paper that's specifically meant for use within the system. And it's quite dirty, but that's because I've been using it quite a bit. And you also can use it over and over again. I can use it for dozens and dozens of paintings before I'm ready to toss it out and use a fresh one. And this is the sponge that goes within it. Right now it's all shriveled up and kind of gross looking, again, because I've used it for tons of paintings, and it's totally fine. The paint doesn't affect it at all. That's left staining it. And this is the bottom tray, and I will show you how it works, but first we need to go to a sink. So it takes a few minutes to set up the palette, but once you have it set up, then it's good for quite a few days. So the first thing you do is you add a little bit of cold water to your sink, and I've added just a couple inches at the bottom, and then you put your palette paper in it. And you just make sure that the paper is all covered in the water, and then you can just let it sit for about 10-15 minutes, just so that the water is infused with the paper. And while you're waiting for that, you can spend a minute just getting the sponge ready. Right now, like I said earlier, it's all shriveled up and quite tiny. And just on top of the paper, in the same water, you can put the sponge in the water. Wait until it softens up. Just takes 10-15 seconds. And once it's thoroughly filled with water, just be a few more seconds. Once you see that the sponge has fully taken on the water, you can pull it out. Make sure you leave the paper still in the water, because that still needs a few more minutes of soaking. And then you can actually just gently squeeze out the sponge. Don't wring it. You don't want to, wreck the sponge, because that you can reuse for probably years. So just gently wring it out. You don't want water to be pooling at the bottom of your palette. And then you can just set it into your palette while you wait for the paper to soak. Now this paper has been in there for about 10-15 minutes, so it's ready to be taken out. And you just take it out of the water, and you want to let it drip for 30 seconds or so, kind of shake it off so you don't have water pooling on the top of this paper when you set it back in the palette. I'll just run my hand along it, just trying to get just the excess water off of it. And then once it's suitably been dripped off, then you just set it on top. Now the magic with this is you can just take, your the paint that you're using, the acrylic paint, set it on top right here, and you can just use it like a regular palette. And as you work with it, especially when you have like spots that have, as you take some paint off, you get these thin spots, but there's still paint there that's still good to use. That's actually going to stay good for hours while you work with it. And then let's say I'm done using the paint for that day. All I do is I put the lid back on, I put it away for, the night or maybe for a couple of days. And then when I come back, I can pull the lid off, and the acrylic will be just as good as it was before. It won't be dried out. A couple more things about this palette. If you find once you've put the palette paper back on and it's pooling a little bit of water, just dab it with a little bit of paper towel just to take that off. You don't want to dry it off, but you just don't want water pooling on it. The other thing that's important to know is don't leave it boxed up for too long, because then it can get moldy. Try and use it every couple days at the most. After you've used it quite a few times, you might start to notice a little bit of a smell. I've just taken a little bit of bleach water just to clean it off, and then I let it fully dry out before I use it again. And one thing that a few people try and do is they use alternatives for the palette paper. I've tried wax paper, I've tried parchment paper. None of them really work as well as the paper that comes with it. when you buy it, you'll get 2 or 3 sheets of it. I haven't even gone through all of them. And then you can buy refills. And for the number of times that you can use it, because it's very strong, sturdy paper, I use a palette knife on it all the time. I haven't actually ripped through it. I just replaced it once it was completely covered in different colors, and I just wanted to see if going to a new one would work better, and it really didn't. So I would just keep using it until it rips or you wear through it. Other than that, this is an absolutely fantastic palette, and if you paint acrylics, it can really make your painting a lot easier.